Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. You should fly back home today. Emily dropped that line at the gate. I am Jake and I am 27, and I honestly thought she was joking. People behind us pushed past, annoyed that we blocked the line. She kept her eyes on the floor while my brain tried to catch up. I laughed first because that sounded like something from a prank video. My laugh came out thin and weird, and she did not join in. You are serious right now, aren't you? She nodded once and shifted her backpack higher like this was a scheduled change. In her head, I think my whole relationship just became a flight option. What do you mean go home? My throat felt dry and tight and I could hear my pulse. We just landed here together as a couple. Yeah, and I am staying here for the week. Her voice stayed light while mine kept tripping over simple words. The line started pushing us toward the jet bridge door again. An agent waved us forward and I walked because my legs remembered how. Emily moved ahead of me with quick steps like she could outrun the conversation. I kept thinking there had to be a punchline coming any second now. Instead, she reached the gate area and veered left toward the signs for ticketing. You already booked everything, remember though? She tossed that over her shoulder without slowing. I felt the words like a receipt slapped onto my forehead. Flights, hotel, tour, my card limit already screamed the total at me. Back then I thought paying proved I was committed, not that I was disposable. She stopped near an empty check-in counter and finally faced me. I am not doing this with you for the whole week. Her hands rested on the handle of her suitcase like it was an anchor. I need time here by myself to figure things out. Those words sounded gentle, but the meaning slapped harder than any insult. Now I think back and I can hear how polished that speech was. In the moment I clung to every soft phrase like a lifeline. Time for myself sounded reasonable if you ignored the airport and the timing. She was not asking for space on a random Tuesday at home. She was telling me to disappear from the trip I had just paid for. We can talk at the hotel. I tried to sound calm. Maybe you just need a day to cool off or whatever this is. I am not angry, she said that fast and sharp like a warning flare. I just know I have to do this alone right now. Her words kept saying alone, but everything in me heard away from you. An announcement crackled overhead about a direct flight back to my city. For a second I pictured myself on it with my suitcase and a bruised ego. Go change your ticket, Jake. Her finger flicked toward the airline desk. You can be back tonight and we will talk when I return. She talked about my life like it was a suitcase she could reroute. I walked to the counter because I needed numbers, not feelings. The agent typed for a while, then quoted a change fee that made my stomach lurch. Plus the fare difference, which sounded like another slow punch to the ribs. So I would pay extra to leave early from a vacation I had funded. Walking away still hurt, but now it also looked stupid on my credit card. When I turned back, Emily was leaning against a pillar scrolling through her phone. Her face softened at something on the screen, and that hit harder than the fee. She locked the screen the second she saw me heading over. Well, she pushed off the pillar and adjusted her backpack straps. Did you get a seat home or are you still thinking about it? I told her the price and watched her eyebrows twitch for a heartbeat. That tiny flinch was the first real emotion I had seen all morning. Wow, that sucks, but you can put it on a plan. She said it like we were talking about an upgrade, not my entire week. Something in me finally stopped begging and started taking mental pictures instead. Back then I still wanted to fix it more than I wanted to win. Now I listen to that memory and I just hear desperation in my own voice. So I told her I was not changing anything yet, and her mouth tightened. If you are staying here, then I am checking into the hotel too. I am not vanishing so you can play solo retreat on my dime. Her head snapped up like I had broken some unspoken rule. This is exactly why I need space, because you cannot respect boundaries. She raised her voice on boundaries and a few travelers glanced over. In that moment I realized she cared more about strangers watching than about me leaving. The anger cooled into something sharper and much easier to carry. Fine. I gripped my suitcase handle until my fingers ached. We will ride to the hotel and then you can decide what you want to do. I am not throwing away a week because you suddenly discovered a new boundary. Emily hesitated, then nodded like she was humoring a child on the way out of a store. She grabbed her handle and started toward the exit without waiting for me. I rolled after her through the crowd feeling every stare that probably only existed in my head. Back then, I thought the worst part was paying for a breakup vacation. I had no idea there was another layer waiting at the hotel. If I had known, I might have taken that stupid, overpriced flight home. Instead, I kept walking behind her, watching the distance between us grow without her taking a single extra step. I dragged my bag into the rideshare line and almost hit her ankle. Emily jerked forward like I did it on purpose, not by accident. "You can get your own ride if you are that eager." She pulled her phone up like a shield, already done with me. Right then, I knew the flight was not the worst part. "We are going to the same hotel." I placed my bag beside hers so we blocked one lane. "I am not paying for two cars so you can play solo traveler." She rolled her eyes and tapped her screen harder. "If you stay here, you do things my way this week." That line burned more than the ticket price. Her way meant I vanish on command while she enjoys my plans. The app called our driver and flashed the car details. I stepped ahead before she could cancel or adjust anything. If I was already funding this disaster, I was at least sitting inside it. We slid into the back seat from opposite sides without touching once. The belt clicked across my chest while she thumbed her lock code. Her reflection in the window brightened as messages stacked up. Whoever she talked to got more focused than I had all morning. I stared at the seat in front of me and counted my breaths. Out of sheer self-torture, I opened my own phone. Not social media, not news, just my banking app and the travel booking. The total sat there like a weight on my lungs. Flights, room, excursions, all neatly grouped under my name. I watched the number and felt stupid and furious at the same time. A notification from her account popped across the top of my screen. I still followed her everywhere online, of course I did. New story, a quote about choosing your path even when others disagree. She had posted it during the flight while I slept beside her. Seeing it now made my stomach twist in a completely different way. You know that moment when memory rewrites itself in real time. Little things you brushed off suddenly line up like flashing signs. The late-night captions about growth, the selfies with captions about independence. Back then, I called them cute and supportive and hit the heart button. Now each one looked like a slow countdown that I never heard. "What is your plan exactly?" My voice broke the hum of the traffic and her scrolling. She glanced up, annoyed that I had interrupted whatever comfort she got there. "For the week, I mean, since you apparently need to be here alone." I could hear the edge in my tone and I did not soften it. "I am going to rest, explore, think." She ticked each word off on her fingers like a list. "You can hang by the pool or catch a flight back or whatever." She shrugged, eyes already drifting toward the phone again. "I just do not want pressure or heavy talks the whole time." So I was downgraded to background noise on my own vacation. I stared out the window and tried to swallow that quietly. Are we together this week or not? The question slipped out because I could not stand the fog anymore. She paused just long enough to make my chest tighten. "We are not breaking up if that is what you want to hear." She adjusted the strap on her shoulder like the word breakup scratched. "I just want space to see how I feel without you hovering." There it was again, that nice soft word that meant vanish. I nodded once so I would not start begging in the back seat. The driver cleared his throat and glanced at us in the mirror. He could hear enough to know this was not a honeymoon ride. I caught his eyes for a second and looked away fast. Shame warmed my face because strangers were now part of our collapse. I turned my head toward my window and let the silence punch. To distract myself, I reopened the hotel confirmation. My name sat next to the reservation, clean and simple. 2 guests, 1 room, fully prepaid and non-refundable. It felt like holding a key I never realized was mine. Back then, I only understood that detail at the surface level. Now I see that moment as the first tiny shift. I did not decide anything yet, I just noticed the leverage. "Do you want your own bed when we get there?" My question came out flat, which finally snapped her attention my way. "Maybe I should take the room and you grab something cheaper nearby." That suggestion knocked the wind out of me for a second. She wanted the nice place while I downgraded myself across town. "You know that reservation is under me, right?" I watched the realization flicker through her eyes and vanish fast. "You would not hold that over my head, that would be really low." There it was, the twist. If I used the one bit of control I had, I was cruel. If she used the nay, I spent to drop me, she was enlightened. I laughed once, sharp and humorless, before I could stop it. Her jaw tightened and I knew round two was coming. Why are you acting like this is some scam? Her hands opened in front of her, quick and irritated. I told you honestly what I need, most people would appreciate that. Most people also do not get dumped at arrivals after paying everything. I kept that line in my head because saying it might explode the car. Instead, I leaned back and counted the seconds until we reached the hotel. I promised myself I would not make any big decisions in the ride. My track record with emotional choices under pressure was not great. Still, a new thought settled in under all the noise. If she was here to discover a new version of herself, maybe I should meet a new version of me too. The driver pulled up to the entrance and popped the trunk. Emily jumped out first, eager to be out of the confined space. I stepped out slower and swallowed the last of my pride for the moment. Inside, the front desk waited with a polite smile and a keyboard. I walked ahead with my card already in my hand, ready to see exactly how much of this mess still belonged to me. I slid my card across the counter before Emily could open her mouth. The desk clerk reached for it and she stepped in beside me fast. "We need to update the reservation," she started, voice all polite sugar. I rested my elbow on the counter and did not move an inch. For the first time that day, I watched her realize I could say no. The clerk checked the screen and frowned at whatever popped up. "It is one room booked under your name only," he explained, glancing at me. "Prepaid for the week and listed for 2 adult guests." Emily leaned forward so far I thought she might climb over the desk. "Can you put everything under mine instead? He might be changing his plans." My hand closed around the edge of the counter so tight it hurt. "I am not changing anything yet," I cut in, eyes on the clerk. "Leave it as is and keep me as the primary guest." The clerk nodded slowly and his gaze bounced between us. Behind my ribs, something small and stubborn finally stood up. Emily let out a short laugh that did not sound amused at all. "This is turning into a power trip for you, huh?" She flicked her hair back and aimed a tight smile at the clerk. "We just need 2 keys and we will figure out the rest privately." Her foot tapped against her suitcase in a nervous rhythm that gave her away. 2 keycards slid across the counter along with a paper sleeve. I scooped them up before her fingers reached the edge. "I will hold both for now," I said, pretending to check the room number. "If you go out without me later, I will hand you one then." She stared at my hand like she wanted to rip it off. In the elevator, she jabbed the floor button harder than necessary. "Do you feel better now, controlling a plastic card like a prize?" Her arms folded tight under her chest as the doors closed. "You are mad at the wrong person right now." I watched the numbers climb and wondered when exactly I became the villain. "You tried to move the room into your name before we even checked in." My voice stayed low because anger came out sharper when quiet. "After telling me to fly home alone from the airport." I could see her trying to decide which part to argue first. In the end, she chose the one that made me look dramatic. "You are twisting everything to make yourself feel better." She turned toward the mirrored wall and adjusted her backpack strap. "I wanted time to breathe this week and you pushed yourself in." The elevator chimed for our floor and the doors started to open. I stepped out first because if I lingered another second, I might explode. Inside the room, she wheeled her suitcase straight to the closet. "I am taking the side near the window," she announced, unzipping her bag fast. "You can have the other half of the room and we can stay out of each other's way." I dropped my bag near the foot of the bed without answering. There was something very practiced in the way she tried to assign me a corner. She grabbed her toiletries and headed toward the bathroom without a pause. "I'm showering and then I am going out to walk around." Her phone went down on the bedside table with a careless tap. "I would appreciate it if you found something quiet to do yourself." The door shut and the rush of water started up a second later. Left alone, I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at my shoes. Every part of me felt wired and exhausted at the same time. I thought about the flight, the gate, the car, all piling up. There was no version of this day where we slid back into vacation mode. I rubbed my face and tried to decide whether to stay angry or just numb. Her phone buzzed once, then again, sharp against the wood. I glanced over automatically and saw the screen light up. A name I did not recognize appeared above it. Preview line. My brain caught on the first word before I looked away. Did you tell him yet? The text read with a little heart at the end. I froze there with my hand still on my face. The second vibration came before I could move my eyes fully away. Another line showed up under the first message on the lock screen. Proud of you for choosing yourself, call me if you need a voice. The same unfamiliar name sat on top, waiting like a landmine. I know the rule about not snooping, and I broke it anyway. I leaned closer just enough to read the name clearly. Marcus. 3 syllables that made my chest feel like it had shrunk 3 sizes. My thumb hovered over the screen like gravity suddenly got heavier. I did not unlock it. I am not going to pretend I am noble, though. I stared at that preview until the display faded to black again. Every piece of today clicked into a different pattern in my head. Airport speech, car ride, hotel check-in all looked different now. None of this came only from her journal or some self-help video. The water cut off and the pipes went quiet behind the wall. I shot backward from the table like it had burned me. Her phone still rested where she left it, screen dark, secret glowing. My pulse hammered so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stood by my bag and tried to look like someone thinking about dinner. The bathroom door opened and steam rolled out into the room. Emily stepped out in a towel and caught me watching her phone. Her eyes narrowed instantly and both hands grabbed the fabric tighter. Were you just going through my stuff? The way she said stuff made it sound like I had rifled through her soul. It lit up right next to me, I answered, throat suddenly dry again. I saw your screen because it is in the middle of the room. She walked over and snatched the phone from the table in one quick motion. Her thumb flew across the glass as she checked whatever I had already seen. Her mouth pressed into a line so thin it almost disappeared. Unbelievable, she muttered, turning away while her shoulders tensed up. You talk about respect and then you lurk around my conversations. She tossed the phone onto her clothes and grabbed a shirt from her bag. Do you read my emails too when I hop in the shower? Every word aimed straight at my guilt instead of the actual issue. Who is Marcus? I asked it slowly because I already knew I would hate the answer. Her arm stalled halfway through the sleeve for a fraction of a second. Then she finished pulling the shirt down like nothing had happened. A friend from work who cares about how I am doing. I moved toward the table and tapped the lock screen with one finger. Your friend from work asked whether you told me yet. My voice shook now, not from fear but from the pressure building up. And said he is proud of you for choosing yourself over me. The phone stayed locked, but the words still crawled around inside my head. She turned fully then, hair still damp and eyes blazing. Oh, so now I need your permission to have emotional support. Her hands cut through the air with every sentence like little knives. Someone listening to me does not mean I am cheating on you. The way she stressed listening made me feel like background noise again. I should have walked away to cool off, instead I stepped closer. So you told him about this trip before you told me what you planned. She opened her mouth to argue and slipped up for half a second. I needed to talk it through with someone who understands independence. My stomach dropped because that sounded a lot like practice runs. Talk what through exactly? I waited, watching her throat move as she swallowed. That you were going to bring me here and then ditch me at arrivals. Her eyes flared at the word ditch and she instantly went on defense. You are twisting things again, you always dramatize my choices. Right there, standing in that overpriced room, I realized something hard. I was arguing with someone who had already written a story where I was the obstacle. I could feel that version of me locked in her messages with this guy. The needy boyfriend, the one clinging, the one holding her back. Once someone paints you like that for an audience, changing the script gets brutal. I am not paying for a week-long self-discovery festival while Marcus cheers from afar. The sentence came out harsher than I planned, but I did not pull it back. Her cheeks flushed and she grabbed her suitcase upright with a loud snap. So what, you're going to punish me by controlling the room now? If you walk out, I will know exactly who you always were. That line hit like a dare and an accusation wrapped together. I stared at her hand on the handle and saw the choice forming again. Fly home alone or stay and swallow this, or do something in between. The 2 keycards in my pocket felt heavier than my wallet. I did not have a final plan yet, but I knew this. Mudge. The rest of this trip was not going to follow her script anymore. If she came here to reinvent herself, fine. I was done playing the role of the clueless sponsor she vented about on her phone. I walked to the door and let my hand rest on the handle. I still did not know who Marcus really was, but by the time this week ended, I intended to find out. I pulled the door open harder than I meant to and stepped out. Behind me, Emily's suitcase wheels scraped against the floor as she spun around. "Where are you going?" "Out." I kept my hand on the handle so it would not slam. If I stayed in that room one more minute, I would say something I could not reverse. "Do not walk away in the middle of this." Her voice followed me into the hallway like a hook in my back. "You start a fight and then run off every time I push back." I took 2 slow breaths because part of me wanted to turn around. The other part finally wondered what would happen if I just kept moving. The elevator doors opened and I stepped inside alone. My reflection looked wrecked and older than it should have. I watched my own jaw clench as the doors slid shut. If I was honest, I did not trust anything coming out of her mouth anymore. I trusted the reservation under my name more than any speech about space. On the ride down, I replayed the check-in in my head. The clerk saying my name first. The word prepaid landing like both a curse and a tool. I had been acting like a guest on my own booking. Maybe that was the first thing that needed to change. I walked straight back to the front desk and set my key on the counter. The same clerk looked up and tried a professional smile. "Everything all right with your room?" "Not really." I leaned forward so I would not raise my voice. "I need to ask a few questions about the reservation details." He pulled it up again and waited. I could feel my heart thudding while I chose the right angle. "Is the entire stay locked in or can I shorten it?" He clicked around and squinted at the screen. "There is a penalty for early departure, but we can credit unused nights." That word credit hit a different part of my brain. So if I decided to check out earlier, some money comes back. Yes, not all of it, but a portion for the remaining dates. My anger shifted into something colder and more focused. For the first time all day, I felt like I had options. I lowered my voice a little. "If I change it to just one guest from tomorrow on, does that matter?" He nodded once, fingers still moving. "We can register the room to a single occupant and adjust access." The phrase "adjust access" felt almost too perfect. I will not lie, that is when the petty part of me woke up. The version of me tired of being the walking wallet in this story. "Then update it," I said, tapping the counter with one finger. "Keep tonight as is, after that make the room under just me." The clerk hesitated like he wanted to ask what happened, then finished the change. "Also, can you reset the keys so only the ones you hand me now work?" My voice came out calm in a way that surprised me. "If any previous cards are used, I want them declined." He printed a new sleeve and tucked 2 fresh keycards inside. I almost smiled at how simple the whole thing actually was. I took the packet and signed where he pointed. The pen felt heavier than it had 10 minutes earlier. My signature looked shaky on the line, but it was still mine. He thanked me and moved on to another guest. I stepped away with this strange mix of guilt and relief buzzing under my skin. Look, I know how it sounds written out like this. Guy gets hurt, runs downstairs, flips the power dynamic. It reads vindictive when you lay it out in neat sentences. In the moment it felt less like revenge and more like pulling a plug. If she wanted a solo retreat, she could fund at least part of it. I rode the elevator back up, gripping the new keys in my fist. Each floor ding felt like a countdown to another argument. Part of me hoped she had cooled off and maybe even reflected. The rest of me knew exactly what I was walking into. You can probably guess which part turned out right. The door was locked when I reached it, which almost made me laugh. I slid the new key and stepped inside. Emily stood near the bed, fully dressed, phone pressed to her ear. She snapped her head toward me and turned slightly away from the receiver. "I will call you back in a minute," she murmured into the phone. She hung up without waiting for a reply and tossed the phone aside. "Did you storm off just to sulk in the lobby?" Her hands were on her hips now, stance wide and confrontational. "You cannot keep doing this, disappear and come back angry routine." She watched my face carefully, trying to read how much I had overheard. "I was not sulking." I set the old key near the TV and kept the new ones in my pocket. "I went and talked to the front desk about the booking." Her eyes flicked to my hand like a radar picking up a threat. "What did you do down there?" I did not answer right away, and that frustrated her more. What exactly did you change, Jake? She shifted closer, shoulders tight. You know this is our room for the week. That word "our" stung in a way it had not an hour earlier. It is reserved under me, actually. I let that hang in the air for a second. From tomorrow on, it is listed as a single occupancy stay. Her jaw dropped before she pulled it tight again. So you really are punishing me for telling you how I feel. You wanted to be here on your own. I shrugged once because everything else felt too heavy to carry. I am giving you that chance, I am just not paying for all of it anymore. Her breath hitched, and for the first time she looked unsure. The script she had prepared did not include this scene. You cannot actually throw me out of the room. Her voice shook now, rage and worry fighting in the middle. This is completely unfair and controlling. I leaned against the dresser so I would not start pacing. You can stay tonight, tomorrow you figure out your independent plan. She stared at me like I had started speaking another language. So after everything I opened up about, you cut me off financially. She flung one hand toward her bag, then the other toward the door. This is exactly what I mean, you use money to keep power. That line would sound great in a text to Marcus later. I should have kept that thought to myself, but it slipped out. Is that what you will tell him when you call back? Her cheeks flushed and she stepped forward, close enough to see a flicker in her eyes. You are obsessed with this. He is my friend, not your business. Your friend knew you planned to hit me with this at the airport. My pulse thudded in my ears while I talked. He congratulated you before you even gave me a heads up. She opened her mouth then shut it again, caught between denial and honesty. Silence stretched just long enough to confirm what I already suspected. She grabbed her phone from the bed and clutched it like a lifeline. You are twisting everything into some betrayal fantasy. I needed support because you react exactly like this whenever I change. I could taste iron at the back of my throat from biting my tongue. Every part of her explanation turned me from partner into problem. Here is what is real, not twisted. I took the new keycards out and set one on the table. That works today, after checkout time tomorrow only mine will open the door. Her nostrils flared and she stared at the card like it might bite her. You cannot be serious right now. You keep talking about choosing yourself. My voice dropped, tired instead of loud now. Choosing myself means I stop paying to be treated like a villain. A laugh burst out of her, sharp and almost panicked. So this is you being empowered, canceling days to feel big. If you want to extend the room under your own name, you can. The option tasted both petty and reasonable at the same time. They will help you downstairs, you have a phone, you have legs. She glared like I had just insulted her instead of reminding her of basic facts. For someone chasing independence, she hated the idea of separate responsibility. She sank onto the edge of the bed and buried her face in her hands. For a moment I saw something like real fear crack through the attitude. Not fear of me, fear of losing the setup she thought she had. I almost caved right there, almost offered to undo everything. Then I pictured her lock screen with his name and the little heart. She looked up again, eyes watery but hard. If you do this, we are done when we get back. There it was, the big threat, like she still owned the final word. I let that sit between us for a few seconds. It hurt, but not as much as paying for my own humiliation. Maybe we were finished at the gate and I was just slow to catch up. Her lips parted like she wanted to throw something back. Nothing came out. I picked up my wallet and slipped one key into it. The other stayed on the table, waiting like a challenge. I am going downstairs for a while. I walked to the door and paused with my hand on the handle. You can use the room as planned tonight, no drama, no scenes. Tomorrow you figure out what finding yourself actually looks like without my card. I did not wait for her answer. I stepped into the hallway and let the door latch behind me with a dull final click. Her banging on the door yanked me out of sleep. I grabbed my phone, saw the time, and my stomach flipped. Checkout had passed 30 minutes ago, which meant the change kicked in. Open this right now, Jake. Hearing my full name in that tone hit harder than the alarm. I slid out of bed and walked over while she kept pounding. Stop hitting the door, I am standing right here. I unlocked it and held it half open with my foot braced. Emily stood in the hall with wet hair and blazing eyes. You really did it, you actually canceled my access. She tried to push past me, but I did not move. Relax, your stuff is inside, nothing vanished overnight. Move, she shoved the edge of the door with her shoulder. You locked me out like I am some stranger down the hall. That last word cracked, which somehow made me feel worse and better. You knew this was happening when the day rolled over. My voice came out rough, sleep still hanging on my tongue. I told you yesterday where the line was for me. She stared like she could rewind the entire conversation if she glared hard enough. You are not throwing me out, not after dragging me here. I did not drag you anywhere, you begged for this trip. The words shot out before I could soften them. What I am not doing is paying for both of us anymore. Her jaw clenched and her eyes flicked toward the interior of the room. Let me in, we are not fighting in the hallway like this. I opened the door wider and stepped aside so she could rush in. She went straight for her suitcase and yanked it upright in one motion. Fine, since you are done being decent, I will check into my own place. She started shoving clothes inside without folding anything. The zippers scraped like nails on my nerves with every pull. You can stay here today, I said, leaning against the dresser. I already shortened my stay at the desk last night. Her hands paused over the suitcase, fingers digging into a rolled shirt. What do you mean shortened? What exactly did you change now? I fly home tomorrow morning, the unused nights got partially refunded. That last sentence tasted like confession and victory mixed together. She snapped the suitcase shut and wheeled it 2 feet closer. So you get money back and just leave me here alone. Her voice wobbled on alone, then sharpened again like she caught herself. You are unbelievable, you really bailated on the whole week. You were ready to send me home the minute we landed. I walked to the desk and picked up my boarding pass printout. This is me finally taking you up on that generous idea. She reached for the paper and I pulled it just out of reach. Where are you even going to stay after I check out? She raised her chin in that stubborn way I knew too well. I will figure it out, I have people who actually support my growth. We both heard the plural and the way she stressed support. One name lit up in my head before she even looked at her screen. If Marcus was not involved in this part, I would be shocked. Her phone vibrated on the nightstand like it heard my thoughts. She snatched it up and turned her back before unlocking it. Do not start, you do not own my conversations, remember that. I watched her shoulders curve inward as she typed fast. You can tell when someone is shielding a message like it is a flame. Text him that you have to pay your own hotel now. The sentence came out low and cruel, I will admit that. Her fingers froze on the screen for half a second. Then she set the phone down hard and spun back toward me. You are obsessed with this guy, go date him if you care so much. I almost laughed at that just from sheer absurdity. Pretty sure he already thinks he is dating you based on those texts. She opened her mouth then shut it again, face flushing dark. You have twisted everything in your head, you always do this. There it was again, the rewrite where I was the crazy one. Pack whatever you want for the day, leave the rest here. I checked the time again and tucked my wallet into my pocket. I will be down at the front desk closing out tomorrow's payment. After that, this key stops working for you completely, not halfway. I held up the card so she could see I meant it. She dragged her suitcase to the door and blocked my path. If I walk out with this right now, we are done forever. The threat hung in the air like humidity between us. My chest tightened, my first instant reaction was to bargain. Then another thought cut through that old instinct like a blade. If the cost of keeping her meant funding my own disrespect, I was out. Then that is what happens, I answered, and I heard my own voice change. This is not a partnership, it is a tab with feelings attached. Her eyes flickered like that wording hit closer than anything else. For once she did not have a quick comeback ready to swing. She rolled the suitcase into the hallway and paused at the threshold. You are going to regret this when you calm down. Her tone softened for the first time in 2 days. You are throwing away something real because your ego got bruised. I almost stepped forward, then I saw Marcus's heart emoji in my mind again. Maybe I will regret parts of this, I answered, hand on the frame. But I am not going to regret finally stopping the bleeding. She flinched at that word like I had slapped her with a receipt. We could have worked through this if you had trusted me. I thought about trust, about seeing his name before mine that morning. I trusted you enough to pay for everything without blinking. I met her eyes one last time because I wanted that image clear. You trusted him with the plan before you told me a single word. Her mouth opened but nothing came out except one shaky breath. Then she turned hard left toward the elevators and did not look back. The quiet after the door clicked shut felt huge and heavy. I stood there in the center of the room, phone in my hand. For a second I honestly wondered if I had gone too far. Then a part of me that had been shrinking for months finally exhaled. I walked to the bed and started packing my own bag for real. Downstairs the clerk recognized me and pulled up the account again. Everything still set for early departure tomorrow. Yeah, keep that as is, I just wanted to confirm charges. I watched the new total pop up, smaller but still painful. At least this time the pain came with a boundary, not just embarrassment. As I turned away from the counter, I spotted Emily across the lobby. She stood near a column, phone held up at an odd angle. Her voice was low, but I caught a few words drifting over. I have today covered, I might need help after that. The way she listened after that told me exactly who was on the line. I did not march over, I did not start another scene. Honestly, I was too tired and too done to keep performing. I headed for the doors and let the warm air hit my face. For a couple hours, I just walked with no plan, no tour. Just me, the ache in my chest, and the first hint of relief. The next morning, I checked out with one small backpack on my shoulder. The clerk printed my receipt and thanked me for staying. On my way out, I saw Emily again near the seating area. She sat with her suitcase next to her, phone pressed to her ear. She looked over once, eyes red, then stared straight past me like I was luggage. On the flight home, my phone buzzed nonstop in airplane mode. Every time I turned it on between connections, more messages loaded. Long paragraphs about how I overreacted and misunderstood everything. Short ones asking if I landed and if I had eaten. Apologies mixed with subtle digs like she could not pick a lane. I typed responses 3 different times and erased all of them. Anything I wrote felt like an invitation back into the same loop. By the time I reached my place, my thumbs actually felt sore. I sat at my kitchen table, dropped my keys, and opened her thread again. There at the bottom sat one final block of text waiting. It was longer than the others, full of grand insights and self-reflection. Somewhere in the middle, she admitted something she had dodged all week. I panicked because Marcus helped me see things clearly before the trip. He reminded me I deserved more than a man who buys my time. Reading that line made my vision blur from anger and relief together. I stared at that sentence for a long time, longer than I should have. Then I scrolled back through photos of us and felt my stomach twist. So many smiles that now looked rehearsed instead of real. You know that feeling when your whole history replays with new subtitles? That is exactly what hit me at that table. I clicked on her contact and hovered over the block option. Part of me wanted some final speech, some perfect closing line. Something clever that would make strangers on the internet clap. In the end, I chose something much quieter and frankly harder for me. I hit block, watched the button change, and set the phone face down. After that, I opened this app and started typing everything you just read. My fingers shook on the first few lines, not going to lie. Writing it out made me see where I was also messy and stubborn. I am not pretending I handled every second like a saint. I do know I finally walked away before the resentment turned me into someone worse. So here is why I posted. I wanted to know if this actually counts as me being petty or protecting myself. I covered the whole vacation, then stopped funding her little awakening halfway through. She says I weaponized money. I think I finally noticed the pattern. If you were in my spot, would you have let her stay on my dime or change the locks like I did?